seemed very fitting to have the boat metaphor when we had everyone on this side. So thank you for those of you that have helped us level out the boat a bit on this Sunday morning when we hear of Jesus teaching from the boat. We hear the fact that Jesus arrived and that everyone was pushing in on him. They were just crowding him. I was reading someone this week that was talking about this and said that feels very different in the midst of a pandemic, thinking about people just so close together, so desperate to hear Jesus, that they would crowd in on him. But he finds his way into the boat and he goes out, and one of the things that I think gets lost sometimes, is this is such a familiar story for so many of us, is that Jesus taught first. Before he asked Peter what to do, he said, from the boat, he taught about whatever his word. I keep doing something, so just bear with me here. I don't know what that is. He kept teaching first. But then we hear Peter, who knew Jesus, say to him, you know, like, we've been at this all night long. This is what we do. Like, we know that you're a teacher and that you're amazing, and, you know, they've started to follow him a bit. They hadn't, you know, but Jesus says, just go out into the deep water and cast your net. Peter's like, you know, we've really been at this a while. We've checked everything. But what did they say? That obedience, you know, that word we hate to lean into, but is such an important part of the Christian faith, is, but if you want me to, Jesus, we'll give it a try. What does it mean for us to go out in the deep waters? We know that the disciples go out and they are out there doing what they're used to doing. But what's different this time? Because we can go through things, right? We all know different ways of challenging ourselves or different struggles that we have. And, you know, there's that wonderful old saying, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. But how is it different when Jesus has asked us to go? How is it different when it feels like God is part of the story? So out they go. And much to their chagrin, they catch more fish than they can possibly find. Much to their chagrin, they have to ask other people to come so that they can share the bounty. They have so much that they don't know what to do with it. And what is Peter's reaction when he comes to shore? What does he say? What does he say to Jesus? He doesn't say, this is unbelievable. His first response is shame. His first response is shame. How often is that true for us? His first response is, I can't believe I didn't listen to you. I'm so bad. And I can just imagine the gentle voice of Jesus just saying to him, it's okay. It's okay. Because God comes to us in our own context. God comes to us in our own language. God already knows. And so in the gospel this morning, we hear that Jesus went out in the boat and he taught first because he knew that Peter and the other disciples all also needed to continue to hear the story of the gospel. Just like we do. Right? Just like we do. Here we are all these years later hearing the story. And I bet many of us, as I look out, at least in the congregation, and maybe a lot of you, have heard this story before, and yet we hear it again. So what is it that this gives us for lessons today? What is it that we are able to look at? We are at a time right now where many people are weary. We are at a time right now where I hardly ever talk to someone that doesn't say, I'm just done. But I can't be done. Or I'm just tired of this. And yet, we need to continue to move forward. And we do. And we do. And yet, many times, in spite of ourselves, when perhaps we get up and we're unsure, we end up being with people in one way or another, and all of a sudden, maybe the burden feels just a tad lighter. Maybe we've done the same thing over and over again, but maybe there's something about being able to do it with others. Maybe there's something about having prayed or said, okay, God, I'm feeling done. Kathy said to me this week, I thought to myself, the computer wasn't working, so I thought to myself, what does Sue always say? And I'm like, uh-oh. That's never a good sign, because I say a lot of weird things. She says, you always tell me just reboot it. Something always happens when you reboot. But that's true. Because we're in this time right now where we need to continue to stay vigilant. We need to keep doing the next right thing. And God is with us. God is walking the path with us. But God is going to call us each in our own context, right? God didn't go to the fishermen and ask them to go to seminary first. God bless them. Jesus went to the fishermen and he met them where they were. Jesus taught them about the gifts and grace and mystery and abundance of God in what they know, just like we do. We're all in different circumstances. We all have different situations, but hopefully we can imagine and see and know those times when God just enters in. Carol's reading this morning was lovely. Just the way the cadence of her voice struck me this morning. She always reads beautifully. Nothing's different about that. Was it where Carol is? Was it where I am? Was it where God is? Was it the words of Isaiah? It's probably all of the above. God comes to us in our context. And so how is it, maybe our question, and I have no answers for you, but I would invite us to leave today saying to ourselves a couple things. So first of all, why do we say to God, I'm sorry, thanks for sharing, but I've already done that? Or what causes us to say, oh God, I can't, I'm awful? Whether it's those old broken places, whether it's places we can't forgive ourselves or places that we know we just haven't healed. How is it that we find a way to be able to move forward? Three things I want to leave you with this morning when we think about trying to go out into the deep waters. Because I would suggest we're all in deep waters, right? And we've been in deep waters for a couple of years. And those that are pretending they're not in deep waters, that's either they're the lucky ones, or we just need to pray for everybody, which I think is a good default setting for me, because needing to know where we are and how we can have our best day informs us, makes sure we know where we are. So the first thing is God isn't going anywhere. If you have a day where you're not sure if you're in the boat, or if you're in the right side of the boat, or if you're in somebody else's boat and it's not your favorite boat, that's okay. God's not going anywhere. God has already forgiven you. Whatever it is that you have inside you that keeps gnawing at you and keeps you feeling like for some reason or another you're not okay. For some reason or another, God couldn't possibly love you. God already knows you. God already knows those places. And God longs to love you and heal those places. And so God has already forgiven you. And lastly, God uses all of us. God, first of all, there aren't perfect people. There may be people out there that look perfect, or maybe we think they're perfect, or maybe we look at their life and wish it was ours. But we are all living, breathing, beloved children of God, fallible, perfectly imperfect. And God uses each of us. God used Peter this morning. Peter doubted him. He knew him. He trusted him. And yet Peter doubted him. And yet we are here this morning to say, okay, how is it that we cannot get in the way of God's call for us? How is it that we can say in those words of Isaiah, here I am. Here I am. We heard them from Mary. We hear them from other prophets. Here I am. So on this morning, we can hear those words, but Master, we've been at it over and over and over again. But maybe as we leave this morning on this cold, kind of cold New Hampshire morning, maybe out there in the deep waters, maybe with the wind blowing a bit and the boat a little shaky sometimes. Maybe our response gets to be, yeah, God, if you want me to go, I'm here. Yeah, yet if you say so, God. And what would that mean? What would that mean to you in your own life? And what would that mean to any of us as we move forward in the deep waters?